All right. So what we have seen as of now, SharePoint and Active Directory both provide a capability to restore back their own items like documents, list, and aside to recover from recycle bin or a user from the Active Directory recycle bin. But we were discussing a problem that even if the user get deleted, my SharePoint have no information about the user which was deleted from the Active Directory. So it is still keeps suggesting that user Tom exists, even if the user removed from my AD itself. So to avoid this confusion and a problem where something has been changed at the user account and we as a SharePoint admin have no clue, we can enable a service in a SharePoint where we are going to say that every time when something happen at Active Directory level, even if you create a new user, modify existing user, or delete any existing user where whom we have given the permission, please inform me, because I as in SharePoint, I must know what is the status of the user there. So for that, there is a specific service which is called user profile service. And what this user profile service gonna do, it is gonna give me a ways to keep SharePoint updated about any user, a status changed, or maybe any user which is added to Microsoft Active Directory. So what we have a SharePoint, and then we have an Active Directory. As of now, we have seen the communication happen on LDAP protocol or Kerberos protocol. But here I am going to ask that whatever the information you have, please synchronize this information to me. Keep me updated because my SharePoint depending on you. So what I am looking for, synchronize user info. Yes, it is again very resource extensive service. Means once the synchronization service enable, it is going to eat up my CPU and memory, but at least at my level we are going to see that, and then we understand that what this does that. So we are going back to my SharePoint. I'm going to click the user account, my IP address, say that password 1234. Right, it ran now. Let me log into my central admin portal. All perfect now. So here I have a service application because this is related to a service. We have installed few services now as of now, but we are going to talk about a very specific service. We say that related to a user profile service application. Now this a specific service is facilitate whenever something changes happen on my Active Directory. We as in SharePoint admin, we are going to know that this specific user has a status get changed. Maybe at the SharePoint, someone disable the user, delete the user, or maybe change something. Let's say they rename the user. So in all these three reasons, we still have a old information about the user, which I do not want. So what is the best way we have? We can go and configure this user profile. So when you click that one, it is going to give you the same wizard which we do while configuring the service. So what this does, that this is a new user profile application. For an example, I can define here MonQ user profile, the database name. And then I am going to type here same name as an application pool, because it is going to create a new website for me on which we are going to run my user profile services. Next, below it is going to ask me which user account who is capable of running these services. So every service account or every web application which we going to install, it is going to give me a separate service pool in my internet information service, and every service pool which control the service is using some kind of an username and password. For an example, this particular service is using a username and password which is called spadmin. Later on the day, we also going to see that what will happen if spadmin password get changed. Then every service which use this username and password gonna stop. And when gonna stop, your SharePoint gonna stop. So even if the primary account through which we log into my SharePoint, if that account password get changed and we are not aware, it is again going to have a problem. So we will see that in a later session, that how we are going to manage this kind of a situation. All right, so I am going to do that, and I have my own service account. Now it is going to take by default a database server which is called SPVM, and within that it is going to create a database name called profile DB. So it means that when I go to my database and I'm going to check, is there any database which is already exist with the name user profile, I found that there is no such database because I have a search service database which we created. I have an app service or app management database which we create for an app catalog, and we have an config database which has stored the information about my SharePoint configuration, and then the WSS content, which basically a database for my central, or you can say all the sites which we have created so far. So it means that my database have no information about the user profile, and it is whatever the user profile they are going to pick, they are going to store in a config database. So I want to retrieve the situation now, and I say that please create a new database with the name profile database. I'm all okay with that. Then it is going to ask me the database server name or database name. By default, this is the only server I have. If I have a multiple SQL server, then I can also define a failover database server name here. In case if the primary database server gone, how I'm going to do that? At this point of time, I have only my one single database server, which is on the same machine where I have installed my SharePoint. It is going to pick up that name. I can scroll it down and see the other configuration. No failover database. It is now going to create another database except from profile database, which is called a social database. The meaning of the social database that whenever we try to use a list within SharePoint list library where I have a column called username, user profile picture, everything we can get from here, my Active Directory itself. It is going to create two databases, the profile database and a social database. In a social database, it is going to store the information like my picture profile or something else, whatever we have assigned to that user. I come back and I can see that everything is all okay. I'm going to use the same thing, nothing to be done. I'm going to say click create this particular user profile service, and it is mandatory in most cases when Active Directory is not managed by me. If I manage Active Directory, then I am aware. But if I am not managing my Active Directory, I may not aware what changes the AD admin is doing with my Active Directory user. So this profile service at least help me to keep ourselves updated about any changes happen on my Active Directory. You say that it's created successfully. So let's first verify that. I can go back here, right click this and click refresh. It is going to create a social DB and a profile DB, two different database. So when we have a two different database, one going to store the information related to user generic setting, second a specific setting of the user account where we have a profile picture, email, and so on. So it means that it has been created. Let's come back to the pool and let's check if the pool also get created for my SharePoint recycle. So I'm able to see a pool is now available for me to be working on as an default as an default user profile. All fine, everything is all done. I can come back and I'm going to search where this application is so that I can go and work on, click this one, click manage service, and I'm able to see this a specific service which called user profile application has now been configured and installed. So when you click that one, you are gonna to get lot of information about the user properties, user profile, subsystem, manage audience. So it means that once the synchronization complete, I can see all the user within my SharePoint itself. All information related to a user, whatever information has been put in this particular Active Directory. But before that, we have to configure the synchronization connection, where I'm going to tell that how you are going to pull the user from my Active Directory. So what exactly I want that? I say that I want to pull info from AD. And then it is going to give me that what action you are going to look. I say that please import every user from my Active Directory. Now it is going to ask me that what is your domain name. So it is going to search this domain name, and I say that this is my domain name. How I am going to connect from SharePoint to Microsoft Active Directory? I say that use with the login user. So what username I have, which have a permission on Active Directory, is sp admin. So I am telling my synchronization service that please go and connect with my Active Directory, pull all the user information using the username and password which I have configured below. And then you remember I tell that how the Active Directory going to work. This is going to work on port 389 and it is going to use the LDAP protocol, lightweight directory access protocol, on which port 389. So it means that from my SharePoint to Active Directory, this specific port and protocol should be open. In my case, it's all done. And now I can check and say that populate the container, and it is going to give me my monoq. And when I click that, I'm gonna get all the informations related to my domain within my SharePoint. So this is what makes this service a very special, where we as a SharePoint admin have no control on SharePoint, no control on Active Directory. When something happen on Active Directory itself, we must be aware. Otherwise, we may not perform our duty correctly if someone disable the user, delete the user, change the user profile, rename the user. All this activity can be performed. So I am able to see the everything which we have in my Active Directory. So what all configuration we have given? I have given my connection name. I say that import the data from Active Directory. What is my Active Directory domain name? It's a monoq.com. How we are going to connect? I am going to use this specific username and password. And using this username and password, my SharePoint going to connect my Active Directory and a port 389, and it's going to use the LDAP protocol to read the information from the Active Directory. And then from a container, when I populate the container, I'm going to get the whole hierarchy of Active Directory, whatever the organizational unit we have created, like an HR department, IT department, marketing, sales, all these things which we have configured in my. So this specific service, what they are going to give me, they are going to give me a power and flexibility to understand what exactly my Active Directory and what is happening in my Active Directory. So now it is going to run this whole import service in the background, and once it is done, it is going to give me every information related to my user in my SharePoint itself. So whenever now we assign a user, at least we know this user deleted, this user exists, new user created. Let's say you get a request that this is a new joinee in the organization, please assign him this specific site. Now you will wonder what this username, when it created. So to avoid this situation, if we have this profile service configured within my organization, it is easy for me to do this specific configuration. And what this specific one? We call it as an user profile service application. So after a certain period of time, it is going to give me all the informations related to my user, that how many user they have going to pick it up, how many user we have, and when we have everything run successfully, it is going to give me a wonderful option. So now look at that, it is by default scheduled to run at 1 p.m. and I can visualize this setting on my job, where I can check that how exactly it is going to run on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. So by default, it is configured to connect my Active Directory in every 5 minutes, which is too low. It should be either a daily or maybe a weekly or something like that. So this is what we have, which give me a power that in a situation where a user get deleted from Active Directory, and user because of that not able to get an access, so they are going to call you, I am not able to access the site. 1 hour before I have accessed that, but now I don't know what is happening, I am not able to do that. So you have no way. Generally what we start doing, that we start troubleshooting. Is there any problem in my SharePoint? Is there any problem related to a service? So we start fixing the bug, but actually the problem somewhere else. So whenever we go to the site and when we try to check that does user have a permission, you see that user is still there. So it creates a confusion that user is there, they have a permission, why they are not able to access that particular SharePoint site. So we can say, hey user, restart your machine, did that, still not access. Problem? User removed from the Active Directory or user disable in Active Directory. In both scenario, user is not gonna access this service. So to recover from that scenario and to protect ourselves from that scenario, what service we have, an which called synchronized user profile service. Synchronized user profile service is, or you can say that user profile service, which is going to connect my SharePoint with Active Directory and pull the information. And along with that, it is going to create two separate database. So in my disaster recovery backup plan, I also have to take care these additional two database to have a backup. One is called Profile DB and one is called Social DB. So when we exactly working on a plan to recover my SQL server or a database recovery plan, we also include these two additional database in my plan. This is also need to have a backup, and when I have a backup, the backup need to store somewhere. So where I am storing my backup, does that particular storage have a space or not? So it means that in a backup planning, we also need to take care about not only the configuration backup, not only the site backup, we also have to take care of the backup of this profile DB and social DB. So both this database is now very important from SharePoint management point of view, where I am going to use the information which is available on my Active Directory user to SharePoint. And you must schedule this synchronization service with Active Directory, or schedule this in synchronization service with Active Directory. Maybe in a very specific scenario, it can be 1 day, but in a general, we generally configured it for a week. So we can schedule synchronization between SharePoint and AD, maybe every week. This is the best. And in an urgent scenario where something has been changed, you can still run this synchronization service manually, so that whatever the information we have in my AD, it is going to replicate to my SharePoint service to avoid a confusion. So this is what the recovery strategy we can work depending on a different kind of a service, maybe related to a different ecosystem. So what is the first service we have, which is a SharePoint? In a SharePoint, we must leverage the feature of a stage 1, a stage 2 recycle bin. For Active Directory, we must enable this feature manually, because by default in Active Directory, this feature is not enabled. And once it is enabled, you are protected against that. Second, to avoid a scenario where something has changed at AD level and you were not aware, and because of that, you or your user not able to access a specific site, document, or any other service provided by the SharePoint, then at least you can do a first level verification in your user profile service, because profile service is going to give you information that this user no longer exists in Active Directory, it's gone, or user has been disabled by the administrator, or user has been renamed by the administrator. So all this scenario is going to be tied up. But apart from that, the most important part when we are playing, especially on SharePoint recovery plan, is my IIS web server. Because if anything wrong happen on my IIS web server, it is gonna impact my service itself. Let's see that what will happen when I try to restore something or disable something on my IIS. At this point of time, I am able to run my central administration portal. Now let's say, for example, this central administration portal is running for me, but let's say I go to my IIS and I'm going to say that this particular service, which is running my central administration, the website itself, I am gonna to say this website is gonna stop now. My mistake is gonna stop now. My SharePoint admin service, because of the XYZ reason, because of the virus attack, because of my Windows server has a problem, this service is corrupt. It's not gonna restart. So what does it mean that where it is going to impact me? Now let me try to run this SharePoint admin portal again. Sorry, this admin portal is not accessible. Let me refresh it again. Maybe some problem. Oh my goodness. It is not running at all. Let me check what happened to the user my, because my user is gonna to access their own respective site. So respective sites is working. User is able to access their own whatever the site they have a permission. But what is not working for me? SharePoint, central admin. So it means that this a specific service which we call internet information service is so much indispensable for me that if this service has a problem, nothing going to work in my SharePoint. And many times we actually try to fix the bug at the SharePoint itself, but problem somewhere else. So what exactly this internet information server going to do with me? Which is having a two important configuration. Information first, which is called application pool. Information two, which called a website. So it hold two critical configuration. One is called a web pool. Second, it called a website. If there is any problem, either of them, if website which holding my central site information or user site information is itself down, so it means that it has a two kind of a website for me. One which belongs to a central admin website, another one is called user a specific website, which is a site collection website. So if any of them has a problem, respective service goes down. As we just see, we just stop the central admin site. When we stop the central admin site, a specific service which related to this central admin website is going to stop in SharePoint itself. So my central admin site is down, but my user site is still running. So it again add and confusion. What's the problem in my SharePoint? User have no complaint. User is happy. But I as an admin, I found that it's not running. It's all because we have a dependencies where it's depending on my IIS service. So the website which I see as a SharePoint portal, that portal itself use IIS web service in a background. And in the background, we have a two configuration. One is called web pool, one is called website. And we just see that central admin website, when have a problem, the central admin portal in a SharePoint is not running, not accessible to me. So when I go and start this central admin portal, in my internet information service, and when I say start now, so it is going to start my central admin site now. Let me to go back, hit this one. I will see central admin should respond in a while. It is running. Now let's do the reverse. My central admin is running, but my user website where my site collection get run is stopped. And it can be a stop for a various reason. Virus attack, there is a file get corrupted, or problem in my Windows system itself. So now when I go back and refresh my central admin, it is running fantastically, no problem in my central applications admin. But when I go back and check my user account, my user site, now it should run in a problem. So I start getting a call from the user, SharePoint is not working. I log into my portal and say that it's working. User say not working. For admin, it's working, because as an admin, most of the time, I only work on my central admin portal. And from the user point of view, most of the time, they work on user specific portal. So my SharePoint is very, very tightly tied up with my service account, or with my, you can say, a website which is running inside my IIS web server. And when my IIS web server has a problem, I am going to get issues like that, where I found that something which is not running in my site itself. And I found that this particular user, none of the user application is running there. And I keep wondering that what happened. Everything is going fine. So we restart our SharePoint. What happened when we restart the server itself? This service is scheduled to run automatically. So it will automatically run the service and we fix the issues. But in a reality, it is something which is happened in a background. Now let me to start this service again. Wait for a second. Come back. Look at that. It's working. So something happened at my website level. It is going to impact me to have a service. But it's not always a case. Most of the troubleshooting, when we do, we found that this is exactly running fine. Something has happened in a background, which is my application pool. So my application pool, which is exactly responsible to run my a specific central admin site or the user site, if this particular service is going to stop. Now scenario has changed, where my website is running perfectly fine and my central admin site has been stopped. Let's see what the result is going to come. because when I tried to access that, website said that, hey, I'm running. I have no problem. But when I try to contact my service is say, sorry, at this point of time, I'm in a relaxed mode. I'm resting. So the error message is totally different. When the website stops, my error message is site cannot be reached. But when my application pool stop, the message is service available. It means that I am able to reach. But after that, there is no one to cater my service. So what exactly happened in the background now? This particular IIS, which hosts my website, but my website is again going to tie it up with my respective application pool. So what is the pool and what is the website? Within the pool, I can run multiple websites. So when we are actually creating a web application, it gives me an option to select the pool. Or whenever we install any service application, it is also going to give me which pool. So within a single pool, I can run multiple websites. Even my central admin